Wait, was all that not the same?
Testing. Welcome to the weekend must-watch on Intercut, the weekly show where we go to the movies, the TV, and this time Sundance. I'm your co-host Arturo Zurita, and joining me, the one, the only, Zachary Shevich.
You know, I like to think of you guys as the pinyon pine and high altitude lavender to my
sir.
bergamot.
Oh, you got bergamot.
Sundance.
I love bergamot.
We got that smell-o-vision Intercut coming in here from the woods, the hills, the mountains of Sundance. We also have joining us Amanda, the Jedi.
Hell yeah.
All the way from Canada.
All the way from Canada, which is actually further north than where we were.
Yeah. Surprisingly, but we got
And
so many
and
good
colder?
things coming up.
I'm guessing colder.
Well, yeah,
I think
bro, what did y'all
depends
come
on the
back
zone.
to? Because I came back to, let me see.
I came back to, well, I got delayed overnight in Montreal because of a snowstorm. So
After, was it 50 mile per hour winds, 45 mile per hour winds that we
yeah,
were dealing with?
literally
Yeah.
crazy.
I came back to a crisp 25. You know, I love Chicago when it's 20 degrees, no snow, just concrete.
I'm kind of
Street.
glad I got delayed. Otherwise, so like I got to clean off my car when it was kind of warm at like
So I got to
noon
pause the,
versus trying to clean it off at midnight. So it was
Yeah,
definitely
but-
better.
Hey,
Yeah.
all those travels are worth it when we make it out to the Sundance Film Festival.
Absolutely.
For all the Intercutie patrons out there who have been tuning into a lot of our stuff, we've had some reviews that have gone up, but we also have a slew of reviews we've been recording all day. This isn't happening at 9 o'clock because we just woke up.
Oh,
I promise.
Keep it
No, we
going.
actually have so many good ones that we have in the holster. We got our top 10 already recorded. So here is our post discussion after talk. Not just getting you the movies and some of the stragglers, but the news. What was it like to be at Sundance on its penultimate Salt Lake experience, Park City experience? We got a lot to talk
We
about.
will
So
see. We will
a shout out
see.
to all of those in the chat. Even if it's a future thing, if you have questions about going to the next one, I'd be very curious. Any of your experiences, movies that y'all have caught. This is just a post Sundance hangout to discuss different things. And the first thing I want to talk about was, Zach's not kidding, the Hyatt went crazy with these things. There are different elements people forget about film festivals.
I wish I
And-
got some, even though
and
I'm
one of
allergic
them
to
is-
smells.
Yeah, kind of describe it, Zach. I'll be your Vanna White.
So they were offering this like the shout out World of Hyatt. This is not an ad. We are just really, really easy to win over. They were doing these like create your own scent things, trying to body the sense of Sundance, involving like all these different like herbs and whatever that are local to the Utah community. So we were mixing together like essential oils of pinyon pine and great Atlantic fir or some stuff like that. I don't know,
Yeah.
man. My smell's really nice though.
Nice.
It's crazy, yeah. We had pinyon pine that you would spray on one, and then ponderosa pine. Maybe some
Ooh,
subalpine
ponderosa pine.
fir.
See, I'm
like my
allergic to
alpine.
pines, so this is already a bad time for
Oh,
me.
Don't
So
worry,
you
we
gotta
got
go with
some
that
great-
high altitude lavender.
I gotta go
Yeah.
lavender and bergamot.
Sage.
Yeah.
Sage, yeah,
Sage is
bergamot,
safe. Sage is safe.
and juniper berry. So
Okay,
it was
half
an-
of
it
those
was-
I'm good with.
Yeah, you know, it was an interesting thing because you would
That's
spray
cool.
them and they would tell you smell it. Do you like it? No, move on to the next one. Okay, you like
like
this one? Bring in another one. Put it
Oh,
away.
like
Put it
glasses.
closer. It was
Better
a really
or
cool.
worse?
Yeah, it was like the sense version of that, and I thought
like
it was
it.
a really cool way to be able to build a sense to bring back. We always have songs at film festivals that remind us of that one year. We've never had a smell we've brought back or one as pleasant as this, but that was one of the cool things that they had out there. I don't know if you guys had another experience to mention off the bat.
Yeah, because we don't normally get much like activation stuff in our Sundance
South
experience.
by,
That's
yeah.
usually what we do at
Yeah.
South by. But they closed down Main Street and allowed people to
Very
just
cool,
walk
yeah.
freely for the first weekend, which is very nice, you know, to get in that iconic Sundance location, get in front of the Egyptian, without being worried about being run over by cars. So that all was pretty cool. I think for me, you know, one of the things about Sundance is being at a really like buzzy world premiere where you can just feel the energy in the room.
Yeah.
To me, the world premieres that got the closest to that feeling of like transcendent movie going experience were probably our experiences going to the Together premiere, the
Oh,
premiere
yeah.
of Rebuilding, and the premiere of Lurker, which was just such an uproariously funny time, and the cast was so game in the Q&A afterwards.
Okay, I wasn't at Rebuilding with you guys, but that's okay.
You were with us in spirit.
I was with you in spirit.
You got to catch it though, right?
What?
Did you get to catch it?
Yeah. I caught the press screening.
Oh, okay, good.
Right after Wedding Banquet. That was like my longest day. That was the touch me day. That's half the reason I probably had a little siesta. It was a good day.
Overall, yeah, we had some pretty good moments over there. Shout out to all of the inner cuties that we were walking into, be it in line and stuff. Pablo, I know you had met some inner cuties who had seen our preview coverage and were over there. Sometimes I got to go back and see, what did we like?
No, literally, when I was making my list, I was like, what did we say we wanted to see again? I had to go back through.
The previews are always helpful in that way, so we appreciate all those who had tuned in, shared it, and all that stuff. Shout out the live chat I see right there. Magnitude talking about he's a huge fan, and I trust Magnitudes because he's out there in the wild. He knows.
Exactly. He's a national parks man.
Yeah, I think I put Ponderance on. You can see one of ours had to be marked so I don't steal Alina's because it smells better.
Yeah, they don't, because which the only thing that could have elevated it even more if they had a printer that was sticking, that was making it like the custom stickers.
Well, they used that budget, as I could tell you, for the hot chocolate flight experience that this man had.
Ooh.
I'm depressed I didn't go.
It was some of the most delicious hot chocolate I've ever had.
Yeah, very decadent, but again, a big shout out to all of those listening. Shout out Trevor, shout out Matt, shout out Life is So Rich, beautiful. Shout out Amanda the Jedi in the chat. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm answering questions. I'm putting in overtime.
Oh, but no, overall we had a great time, I'd say, at Sundance. There was different curveballs we got,
Yeah.
Sometimes
this was definitely
falling apart.
In terms of
Sometimes
the movies, this was definitely the most contentious festival of sorts, or at least controversial festival, in that I can't remember a festival that had nearly as many changes to the lineup as this one did.
Yeah.
And it started even before the festival began with the Julian Assange documentary that dropped out. But I did not expect it to continue well into the festival with Black News being pulled from the lineup and then thrown back in. With the disappearance of digital screeners for Twinless and Selena y los Dinos, and even our disappearance of Train Dreams.
Yeah.
It was a little more chaotic Sundance than I think we're used to.
Yeah, Twinless got yanked so fast. I was like, we got to watch Plain Clothes because I don't know what happens to Tom Blythe in that, and he's in Hunger Games. We don't know the stands.
We went down the IMDb star meter. Trying to be like,
little bit. Who's doing a gay scene that's popular? Get it in.
Yeah. They were disappearing like crazy. It did make it very hectic. It kept us on our toes, but the Intercut podcast. We are here for the inner cuties. We got all of that down, so we're here to answer all your questions. We do have top 10, but here we also wanted to cover, like Zach was mentioning, the moments leading up to it, because on top of those that got pulled and things that kind of changed, like Leonard Peltner was another one that right before I saw it, you're like, they freed him, right? It's called Free Leonard Peltner. And Zach's like, they just freed him. So you're watching like a version of a movie that hasn't really had its ending fully shot yet because there's new developments. That's what the Julian Assange one was as well. There's movies like Last Days that just shouldn't have been developed to begin with. But overall, there was ups and downs to the festival, but it's one where I'm hoping, as things are so up in the air, they're talking about in the chat as well, on where it may go, that I'm hoping that some of the consistent factors will still be the quality of the programming. Really do hope they keep the online portion to some degree. Zach talked about it in a different video, how they should handle it. But then more than that is just finding an avenue that's going to feel like Sundance. We saw so many movies about locations and places, from rebuilding to all that's left of you, to talking about the importance of where you set up camp.
Maybe that's a good place to start it, because I think one of the things that we were reflecting on during our time in Park City was how many films we've seen through our years at Sundance that are either set or just filmed in Utah, going back to a movie like 9 Days, which implemented the salt flats so strikingly, to this year. We saw movies like Omaha, and there was another one I believe that we saw that was in Rebuilding, that was partially shot in Utah, I think.
All the ones from years past, bro. They have a beautiful trailer.
Yeah, it was really nice that it was, SLC Punk, 9 days, just a lot of really cool stuff that went through. Yeah.
And yeah, Utah being so intertwined with the identity of the film festival, which has this lingering question of where will the future of the festival be set. It is still guaranteed to go back to Park City in 2026, but beyond that, it's a choice between Park City, Boulder, Colorado, and Cincinnati, Ohio. And we will, I'm super curious to see. We were talking to lots of people about their thoughts on where the future of the festival will be. I think it is also worth noting that it no longer is open to the public in the original location of the Sundance Valley. We took a field trip out there together, and then they closed it off this year. So
and last year,
not knowing that it was going to be our last one, or maybe even our last one. With what happened on our way back. But that's
so it's not exactly like the festival is in the place it's always been. Fair. Though a move to Colorado is a lot more drastic than a move to Park City.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Who are you picking? What's the city you want the most? 3, 2, 1.
Park City.
Oh, Park City.
But if it has to move,
if we had
Boulder.
to. I don't mind Boulder. We always have a great time visiting those mountains and such.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I don't know, man.
Yeah. So
we've seen a lot of stuff dwindle with it too.
Yeah. Do you want to talk at all about some of the changes we were noticing to the festival this year?
Yeah, for sure. A big part, like you're saying, is you're missing one of the biggest theaters, which is the Mountain Resort. On top of that, you're dwindling a lot of other screenings where there was no early Eccles. Eccles get shut out halfway through. Yeah. R.I.P. the Mark. Y'all never got to see the Temple. And there's so many ones from Salt Lake that have also been taken away. I do think there's a huge restructuring that needs to happen, even if they stay in Park City.
Yeah, and some of the slashing of screenings and stuff apparently is a cost-cutting measure. Last year, there were no midnight screenings at all. This year, they brought a couple of them back, although it was still a much more limited form of them. But there are just less screenings at less theaters than we're used to at Sundance, which means that there's kind of fewer options for you to fit lots of movies into a day. And it's just a bit of an unfamiliar feeling for us, having known the festival at its most indulgent and indulging to the max with it. But there is sort of this turning point with Sundance in that we were able to experience it pre-COVID and post-COVID. And of course, pre-COVID, the digital component was non-existent. Whereas post-COVID, Sundance has been the best of the major festivals at maintaining a large digital component. Yeah. And I saw some people reflecting on the fact that, the back half pass, which was the pass that I used the first time I went out to Sundance, as did many of our friends, a cheaper option to fit in a lot of movies on the second half of the Sundance Film Festival. That used to be a cause for making the second half of the festival a lot more crowded than it is now, where people know they can just buy a digital pass and they don't have to take the trip all the way out to Utah. And I'm wondering how much some things like that are ultimately affecting the vibe of Sundance right now.
Could be too. Yeah.
Huh? It's so hard to say. I think in the preview, Art mentioned that there's some legislation in Utah that definitely seems to be responsible for why a lot of the venues got shut down in terms of trans bathroom bills. That's interesting to look into. They have not said that that's the reason why, but it actually tracks so perfectly that I can't really imagine that not being the reason when you look at what's still there and what's not.
At least a heavy influence.
At least a heavy influence.
Because in Cincinnati, I think everywhere is a bathroom.
Well, according to the guy who's trying to get us to go there.
Yeah, it depends on your feelings on Skyline.
Now we definitely can't go to Cincinnati, but yeah. There's a lot of behind the scenes that we don't know about. And like Zach mentioned, when we're talking to the people, this has been weighing heavy. We had compared it to the GTA 6 thing where all the companies were asking, please just let us know when it's going to be. Because a lot of the restaurants and stuff, they are dependent on the travel. They are dependent on Sundance coming in, and they just need to know, yo, you going to be here or you not?
Yeah. Because it is a thing that they will still get skiers and stuff like that, but they're not going to get that same level of influx that happens for those are one of those things that that's a week or even a weekend that can make or break your year. That's a huge season that's gonna set you up for the foreseeable little chunk of time and get you through the summer type thing. So,
like how Trevor had even mentioned, if they were to keep it, they're leaning more Salt Lake. Remember, like that's
which I don't
the crazy
like
part.
actually.
Even if it does stay. We had the most trouble probably in Salt Lake getting into
so
movies in the second
Salt
half.
Lake's always so like the last few years we've heard nothing but like I got shut out, like 50 people, 60 people, 100 people got shut out of a movie because of pass holders, and it's always Salt Lake.
Yeah, it's one of the craziest parts there.
So
but outside of that, we also had some other cool experiences going in there to different theaters, be it the Q&As. I don't know if there was any ones that really stood out to you, but, we rarely get too many standing ovations, I feel. When we come to Sundance, I've always felt like that's a con original or something like that, but TIFF will give a couple, but there was one day where I was just hit with back-to-back ones, and all of them
Yeah,
were
do you remember
followed up
what
by
the
really
movies
cool.
were that you saw back to back to back that got standing O's?
All That's Left of You
makes sense.
was the second one. The first
Ballad?
one
You
was
wrapped it
Ballad.
up
Ballad.
with Oh, okay. First one was Ballad.
I think Ballad was first. Somewhere on my Twitter. I know All That's Left of You was the last one, and then whatever I saw in between ended up getting another one to some degree.
All That's Left of You started at like 6 p.m., 6 or 6:30.
Maybe there's a middle one in there. I don't know. I'll pull it up right now, but I don't know if there was any Q&As that like stood out to y'all, be it certain talks or intros that really stood out.
Rebuilding was the third in your trio
Rebuilding?
of standing ovations. Yeah.
Bro, and Rebuilding has the top intro that we got. No
go.
person came out there and wore their heart on their sleeve saying, this is everything to me. Please like it.
Yeah.
And right
Max
off the bat,
Walker Silverman, I think, is the director of that movie. Just
killed it.
Such a heartfelt opening intro. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely check out his previous, A Love Song, something that we covered overall. Magnitude talking about Sorry Baby. I know you got to be there at the premiere, Amanda. This will be discussed. We have so many recordings, but talk about the room being in there.
No, people loved it. You could just tell there was like a really great energy going into it. I hope everybody in the waitlist got in, because there were definitely like empty seats around us, and a lot of people there, you could tell, were there. Like they were people who worked on the movie, who I'm glad got to be a chance to be there, because a lot of the times at the film festivals, you just hear people not being able to make it into the premieres, especially the ones that premiered at like the library. Like so many people were trying to get into Bunnylovr, and Bunnylovr specifically, a lot of the people working on the film. So it was cool that they were all there, but I feel like people kind of maybe underestimated that movie going into the premiere. Maybe. And weren't necessarily flooding it as much, because like me and Caitlin had a lot of empty spaces around us. So like, I'm sorry, if you were in the wait list, you should got let in. But like reception was incredible. Post movie was incredible. Really excited. It was the first of the screenings I saw that you got a lot of that like good reaction for like as the different production companies were hitting screen. Like people were really excited. So that it was a lot of people there. But yeah, no, it was very, very good. It wasn't like one of the ones where it's like, oh, it's a lot of people in the audience watching this and that's why they're clapping. But it was just really good. I didn't see anybody that seemed like they were having like a bad time with it. So yeah, great energy. And then honestly, her like Q&A after was really good. Lucas Hedges said some weird shit. He was like strong negging energy. Strong negging energy out of
listen
Lucas.
To it when you can, Zach. He says some stuff that's so Lucas Hedges.
Literally just kind of like, I just got this
didn't know how to act, and like I was like, okay,
just
I think I'll.
And I just like, I'm glad I read it, because it actually is good. And I was like, good? Kind of very much like almost like he didn't think she was worth his time. And I'm like, what are you doing? What are you up to?
Like, sometimes like when I'm in New York, because I'm from New York, I'll be like walking around and it's these intimate moments that you have with people. Lucas Hedges being Lucas Hedges.
But other than that,
he's good in the movie. He's great.
Yeah, he's good in the movie. But other than that, that Q&A was really great. She was kind of like you could tell she was kind of like working at not getting overly emotional in areas, because obviously it is, as funny as it is, it's obviously a very deeply personal story to her. But no, it was really good. It was really good.
That's good.
Yeah. Sometimes I try to sort of like outsmart the festivals and do a little bit of like schedule math, and knowing the way that these festivals work, a lot of people only come in town for that first like long weekend. By the end of that Monday, a lot of people are leaving Sundance. So I just kind of assume that if they're setting a world premiere for like late in the night Monday or on Tuesday, that's the festival sort of saying like, we don't actually think this movie is very good. It's okay if you leave town before it.
Yeah.
And Sundance proved me wrong, because Sorry Baby, I think was like a Monday night premiere. Lurker ended up being a Tuesday night premiere. two of the later premieres of the festival ended up being two of our favorite movies of all of Sundance.
Yeah.
Oh. And that's a good breakdown, just to say really quickly, is knowing that Sundance does a 2-week period. Zach had mentioned how the second week is more affordable. You could just see it from the prices. The tickets stay the same, but the packages change. If you're under 25, I believe they still put out that Adobe one.
They do, yeah.
The
Probably a little
Ignite.
bit more expensive. Yeah, but the Ignite one, that's how I started with it. There was no way I would have been able to go my first couple of years before getting accredited.
Yeah, that's fair.
But again, are you willing to go the second half where it's going to be
And
cheaper?
sacrifice being there for those Q&As and stuff.
And I love those Q&As.
The first half is, the
was
premieres.
very fortunate this year. We're still not sure. Like, I got really lucky with a lot of the premieres, but it was always movies that I had separately reached out for to the production companies. So I don't know if they were the ones passing names along to Sundance to prioritize tickets, because it was only the ones I reached out for. But I ended up being very fortunate. Sorry, Zach, but it's I don't feel terrible because by the end of the festival,
nobody has to feel bad for me.
I was gonna say, by the end of the festival,
hey, sorry, Zach. Hey, Zach, sorry.
You were just making a face, Zach. But no, by the end.
I hate to bring it up. Sorry, Zach.
By the end of the festival, we all saw, like, technically Zach saw more than me by the end of the festival. But anything I saw that opening weekend, everybody else saw by the end. I always
find a way.
And I'm happy I was there for the Q&As for the ones it was always stuff I really cared about seeing. So.
Yeah.
And
that was a
cool
thing about the digital thing is that they, they're not better quality, but they have gotten better on making sure that if you are in that second half after stuff is premiered, you will get the Q&A from the sometimes I should say. Yeah,
depends who wants to stick around, basically.
And it also depends, if they zoomed in on the camera or whatever. Hey, y'all can hire me.
Definitely digitally. Yeah.
Sometimes you'll be watching people upload their own versions, and it's like, how is this better?
Yeah, it'll literally take them sometimes like 5 minutes before someone's like, oh, that's like not on anyone.
Worth it, because I love catching the New York Film Festival ones that are filmed impeccably.
They're so good.
And they're great conversations.
TIFF films really well too.
Films every single one, and I'm so surprised Sundance has not. I thought the Q&A for Ricky was fantastic.
Oh, I imagine.
Saw someone bringing up the rebuilding one, and I saw Trevor over here saying the rebuilding director was still there on the final Sunday.
Good.
I don't think you understand how much respect I have for a person
because that's
willing to stay the entire.
Because that's expensive for them to be staying. Because I'm sure a lot of them would like to, but actually just don't have the financial ability to do so. Because the festival,
the producers backing them or whatever.
Yeah, if the festival works anything like my friends who did 2 festivals, they did TIFF and they did Busan. Like the way they work is like they pay for like a very minimal amount of time, primarily for the director, and then sometimes they'll do like half that time for a producer or something. And I'm not usually nothing for the actors. Maybe if you start getting bigger name actors, they would do more. Or the producers are responsible for it, but like the director's the one that gets taken care of the most, and they'll usually cover flights and like a few days in a hotel that's close to the venue, and then after that you're on your own. And Park City is very expensive, and it's not like TIFF where you can kind of catch a subway from like pretty far out and get a more reasonable price. It's pretty exclusionary across the board, even with a rental, because then you have to find a place to park.
Exactly.
So
what Amanda's mentioning is that it is 2 different cities. They're 45 minutes away. Salt Lake, where everyone lands and you can get affordable housing, to Park City, which is a slopes town where it's very expensive.
That's where
everything
everything
we're all together. We go in as a group. I don't know if y'all had a couple people. I had a couple people come up and say, "Oh, y'all with that group, right?" Yes. We've been able to find a way to do it, and that's been my pitch since I think I made my video back in 2018-19, that the best way to go about it is, make online friends, figure out how people are going there, avoid the creepers, but with a smart mentality.
With a smart mentality, you can make it work.
You can make it work. Be careful.
I've
seen some people make jumps, but
yeah, because I've yet to see a horror story, at least in terms of people that are all at least somewhat making content online. Like maybe if it's just friends, you could run into a very different experience. But if there's at least a way to publicly vet people, I think it's harder.
I feel like we saw a movie where someone said, "What's your Insta?" He's like, "I don't have one." He's like, "That's not good. You ain't got no trail." I need a trail that you've been a human being for a while.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, even with the Q&As, the director of the librarians was still there. And that really meant a lot to me. Because to me, you sometimes go to a screening and they're still there because they're posting on Insta. And you're like, you should be here, not partying.
Yes.
I remember Reynaldo Marquez Green when he had done...
We the Tigers?
Monsters and Men? No, it was
Monsters and Men. You're right.
8 o'clock in the morning. He told us he was at a party last night, but he made sure to go up to the wait list to say, we're going to get you all in. That has stuck with me the entire time.
Cool.
Even when he made that Mark Wahlberg movie, I looked the other way because I like him. That really stands out to me when a director is there to really push their film.
Which is good.
I don't know if you had any other ones.
James Sweeney, who was the director of the Audience Award-winning
Twinless.
He was
he
still
told us he was still there.
Yeah,
like,
on the second to last day of the festival.
That's what I mean. That's
so cool.
expensive. Like that's rough.
When I saw Selena, she commented on the fans being very, very into the movie.
Yeah, of course.
Didn't mention the piracy. Did Sweeney make a joke?
No, I wish somebody would allude to it.
I think he was scared to because it was so fresh and Sundance hadn't released an email yet.
Yeah,
for us, we're all up in the air, but I can't imagine.
You know, and I get that you could piss people off if you say the festival might have like flat out asked him not to. The producers might have asked him. It's like so hard to say.
It's like Kendrick saying I can't play the song because of the lawsuit.
Yeah.
He should have done one. I think that would have been funny.
It would have been funny. But
leading into the sales and other controversies that were there, take it away, Zach, in terms of what the biggest things that at least people can look forward to.
Yeah, well, I think one of the early stories out of this year's Sundance Film Festival was the kind of slow sales market, because Sundance is a place where films are announced to the different studios that has solicited many bidding wars in the past. We've been there for movies like It's What's Inside and Palm Springs, going for record-breaking amounts. Even like A Real Pain went for a lot of money last year. Yeah. And we got 4 or 5 days into Sundance without any major sales being announced, which is a bit unusual for the fest. Now, granted, there were some things percolating behind the scenes that have now come out. The first big one of which was the sale of Together to Neon. I think it was finally reported as a $17 or $18 million sale, which would probably put it at least close to the top 10 sales of Sundance ever.
I think the highest is still 20, right?
Yeah, I think Coda for 25 is probably the highest.
Yeah, yeah. Right, yeah.
But yeah, it Together, huge amount to Neon.
Great.
And I think it makes a lot of sense given this movie. I think, it's a movie that is prime for a breakout in a similar way to something like Talk to Me, which it became a bit of a horror sensation out of Sundance, except this might even have a little bit more mainstream power, given that you have Alison Brie and Dave Franco, a real life couple, on screen together for the first time. And this general premise that's kind of like a couples driven horror movie. Like this has got date night built into the premise.
And I think body horror might scare some people off. Like I managed to get a second ticket to this specifically because someone was like, I realized it was a body horror and I can't do that. So that's how I got the ticket for my friend. I was like,
for sure, but we're living in a post-substance world. There's more.
I agree.
Than
that's
ever.
What I mean. That's because I almost wanted to argue with you for 2 seconds, being like, nah, like Talk to Me was such like the prime. And I still agree. I still think Talk to Me is like perfectly primed for like a smart mainstream audience movie, but like then I was like, nah, Substance like I think has really introduced more people to body horror and like what they're able to handle in movies. And this doesn't go that far. It goes far, but it doesn't get to the point that it feels gratuitously disgusting. It all feels kind of like it's working.
They're prepped for it.
They're prepped for it. So I think it's gonna. Yeah, it's definitely going to do well. And obviously having bigger name actors is going to help. I do think it's a benefit to Talk to Me that they insisted on using lesser known actors from Australia because they're Australian. But this project only happened because Dave Franco was like, I'm doing it and you're doing it with me. So I think that's going to help it. And it's good for them.
Oh, their Q&As are going to be great.
Oh, it's so funny that it was like his thing, but then she's the one, she dominated that Q&A. She took it over.
And you can tell because I keep forgetting he keeps popping out for Bubble and Squeak. And because he's in Bubble and Squeak, it's like, oh, look at you. You finally get to talk.
Yeah, I know. Literally, that's how it felt.
Yeah, pull that one back up, Zach.
Yeah, sorry, my bad.
Interesting one.
Brady asked us if we have any interesting audience reactions happening around us during Together. He alluded to how we had an interesting incident with Nightingale a few years ago. Nothing like quite like that for Together. The big gross out movie at Sundance this year was apparently Ugly Stepsister, which I don't think you actually saw this, but somebody reportedly threw up in the aisle for that one.
Oh, really? That's crazy.
Yeah, that's what they said. They puked. I was all the way on the other side. I didn't even smell it. but
Good.
it was a disgusting movie. If there was one, it would be that one. Or
Bunnylovr was actually really rough. People were like,
leaving?
what? No, because it's the
Oh.
library. You can't get out.
No, the library is a mess sometimes. Yeah.
So like, but people, some people were, and you could like, people just weren't looking. Like literally, it was like 5 of us all being like I'm like, I don't know this woman, but we're having a moment now.
That's fascinating. Yeah.
We're having a moment. So like that one, yeah.
Together, the biggest audience reaction was that it almost got a spontaneous applause during a particularly awesome
Hallway.
set piece that takes place in a hallway
Mm.
without giving much away. Like if you felt the audience wanting to just give it a spontaneous applause break, but it just didn't get all the way there.
They
There's a
reminded us
bathroom
Happened at
scene.
South by.
There's a
they
bathroom
were Sundance,
scene.
not South by.
Yeah.
No,
Oh, there's
the
a bathroom scene that did
Bathroom
get an
scene.
audible gasp or two.
Oh,
Yeah.
like
I
lots
woke up
of
in
like,
the middle of
it
the
was
night
fun.
giving that an audible gasp.
Yeah, it was all fun reactions. Like Together was never anything where people where it wasn't like I need to get out of here. It was like,
Yeah.
whoa.
Yeah.
Our
Gnarly.
first public movie, or I should say, in theater movie, was Magic Farm, and that had reactions from the P&I people who were just getting up and leaving in droves.
Really? I
And
don't feel like I didn't notice.
No, there was ones where we looked at each other, we're like, what? Why this part and not like anything that happened prior?
I swear sometimes it just like hits a limit. Like they hit a point where they want to leave and they're just kind of
Yeah.
like, do I go
Yeah.
now or do I wait?
If
I do
if
feel
this
people,
character says it one more time, I'm gone.
people
And
usually leave after the thing that makes them want to leave. The only
Opus
time,
had a
the
couple,
only
too.
outlier to that is Nightingale. People were leaving when they saw what was coming.
yeah. Zach,
It was like,
mention,
"Why are you
mention
down here?"
Opus because I thought you gave a great perspective of what a lot of people don't realize until they go to these film festivals. Have to see
Yeah.
it for someone else.
So Opus had one of the most like well-received opening credits that I've ever seen at a film festival, and that's because as the names of the different producers and costume designers and graphic artists or actors appear on screen, all their friends who were there in attendance at the premiere are also clapping along. Like this was such a well-attended premiere. I sat in like the balcony where they throw like the overflow people, and actor and friend of Io Debris, Zach Fox, sat further back than me.
That's
Yeah.
So
crazy.
Crazy.
this was packed with friends and family, and so
Could not
like,
get in. This is the only one I could not get in.
Amanda literally said she had access to everything and could not get this one.
Yeah.
But despite how well received the beginning of that movie was, it did not get that same reaction at the end, which I think is a bit of an
That's
indicator of its
crazy.
quality.
Yeah.
I do
it was
appreciate you vetting
going.
it because
Yeah.
I got to see it and not be as disappointed. I
the
was
best
like,
parts,
oh,
yeah.
They
there's
set
some
your
really
expectations low.
yeah, because
Oh,
there's some
thoroughly,
really
yeah.
good ideas here. There's some really good ideas here. They
Yeah.
clearly didn't know how they wanted to execute it. It feels like they were setting up for a mini series because the intro is way
Yeah.
too long, and then they don't know what they want to do with the climax. So maybe they couldn't have handled the mini series. But then there's
Yeah.
some good ideas. The ending, it goes one step further on the ending, and I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that is smart. I just wish they had gotten here better.
Yeah,
I
we've
love
got
how
our
you can
full
have-
review already up
yeah,
on the
we got a
channel
whole
as well
review.
for Opus.
Yeah.
But I love how you can have a whole thing of friends and family and they still can't lie to you.
Yeah, that's rough. That's
Like- like-
rough.
Like that's an in-person
That's the other
screening.
thing about those live Q&As is that while the energy in the room is really electric when an audience really loves a movie, there's nothing more awkward than sitting through at a Q&A when the audience has like obviously not really jived with the movie and is kind of just waiting for it to end.
Because we've definitely been there when like people involved in the movies have
Oh man.
been more excited than like the
Yeah.
audience has, but like that must have been set. I think the hype was just so high that it just didn't deliver on it. That we've seen enough similar movies that have been done better that it was
Yeah.
hard to get excited about it now.
Participation trophy as questions is what they had during that.
When you have that much talent, it's hard to want to give it something. Like if that had been a movie with a smaller budget with smaller cast, like maybe you'd be like, oh, that's
Literally-
cool ideas. But
Literally, one of the questions was, "Io, you wore a Radiohead shirt in the
What's
movie,
the-
and your Criterion Closet video. What's your favorite Radiohead song?"
It's so goofy.
Yeah, that's a movie that already was with A24. Another
Yeah,
movie that
already
is
picked up.
now with A24 is Sorry Baby, which
yeah.
sold for $8 million. Another one of the big sales of the festival. I think it's no surprise that this one went, given that it was one of the most well-received movies on the ground, and according to our live stream, one of the most well-received movies by the Intercuties as well. Yeah, I think we all really like this one. We've got a review coming for it as well. But I think going to A24 is a pretty awesome place for a movie like this to land, and for a filmmaker like Ava Victor to have them like stewarding her.
I agree. I'm happy it got picked up. Definitely worth it. One to definitely add on your radar. And again, a reminder that that's why we're always pushing y'all to take advantage, especially after this year, of those digital screenings. The fact that this and Twinless, for half the time, we're supposed to be available, showcases to you what a period in time we're in, where you're able to watch these Sundance films. 2017, me? 18, 19, y'all, like, we were all together. Dude, by the 20s.
I'm still
never
so amazed that these movies are still available to the extent that they are at this festival. Because we got 1 year of that at TIFF. Yeah, it was like hybrid because they weren't letting people apply from outside the country.
And someone had a leak.
And then literally someone leaked Dear Evan Hansen, and it was over.
But no, I agree.
Watching the little blur go around the screen.
Let me hit y'all with this. When we were together in 2019, that was the first year all of us had gotten accredited. Coco di Coco da. That was our screener links we were getting.
Yeah. That was
it is a completely different time. Yeah. So if you're at home, like, I know 35 is a little steep. Get a person, split it in half. It is worth it, especially if you're including the travel you don't have to do to Park City. Sorry, baby. How much did it get picked up for, you said?
8 million.
8 million, which is a pretty solid amount for a movie like that. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
That's about that's twice as much as Talk to Me. As far as I know. Talk to Me was 4.
What the? That's so small.
They made their money back in droves. That movie saved them from Beau is Afraid. Like, kind of literally.
A masterpiece. What else, Zach?
So we didn't talk at all about Peter Hujar's Day. That one got picked up by Janus Films, which is like the right place for a movie like
that
Peter
feels
Hujar's
right.
Day.
I haven't seen it, but that feels right.
It's a Janus ass film.
Yeah. I think neither of us was like the biggest fan of it, even if there's a lot to admire in the acting and the craft.
Know what it is.
Yeah. So this is it's a really interesting kind of experiment from Ira Sachs, in that he's taking the transcript of an interview that this author was conducting for a book that she was publishing that never ended up getting published, and then just turning that transcript into a movie. So it's this like really interesting, and the interview is about like what an artist does in a day. So it really gets into the minutia of a life lived with a creative extension to it, and how a lot of that is also not really about the creativity. And there's some like really interesting aspects to how he navigates his life, as well as like his real life interactions with famous people of the art scene at the time, like Allen Ginsberg and Fran Lebowitz are frequently mentioned in this film. It is just so like in the nitty gritty of the details of an era that I don't know enough about to care deeply about, that I don't know. I had very little patience for this one.
And it's a bottle film. You are literally just in his apartment. Like, it's Peter Hujar took the day off, but I will give Ben Whishaw and Rebecca Hall probably
incredible
the best performances I saw. You don't even think he's reciting anything, and he said, he went on record, he does not improv a single line. Ben is a master at what he does. Even if the movie, Zach and I can agree, is boring as can be, he's like literally living this character. And then we had heard a little bit about Rebecca's accent. Clean, very subtle, perfect, doesn't even do much, and sometimes those are the most outstanding supporting performances. She's had her monologues at Sundance. We already know all that, but hey, for the Janus lovers out there, it wasn't for us, but we respect the hell out of the acting that happened in this movie. Keep it on your radar.
Cool.
Yeah. Another sale for a movie that we've already put a review out on is Lurker. Oh, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, do you feel like that movie would work better if you kind of watched it in little like clips? Like if you took it as if it was like a series of interviews, if you just kind of watched a chunk and then like left it alone and then maybe went back and watched a chunk?
Perhaps,
how they deliver it to you also,
Okay.
I mean, it is already a short movie. It's like 72 minutes.
Oh, okay. Oh, shit.
Yeah, maybe if it was a Quibi series, it'd be better.
You're lying. What did you just say?
What did she say?
No, you're lying. This man said it was 72 minutes. No, it's not. No, it's not.
Dude, you guys made it. Dude, I swear to God, the way you guys were talking about it, you were like, it's just 2 hours of him in a room.
No, I swear to you, I left 2 hours later from that theater.
That was so
76 minutes long.
Oh, that's so funny.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
No, I swore we were there for 3 days in this apartment.
It's the longest 76
That's
minute
the
movie.
funniest thing you've ever said,
That
because I
is
swear
the
to God, Art was like,
longest.
yeah, it's like almost 2 hours of him just
I came out
talking.
straight up saying it was 2 hours. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
That's the worst part
let's get
about
to
it.
let's get to the one that we wouldn't have mind being 2 hours.
Yes. So we already have our review of Lurker out on the podcast, but
Yep.
we now know that Mubi
so
has
cute.
acquired it. And this
That's cute.
it's interesting because earlier in the festival we heard that Neon, A24, Netflix, and some other pretty big studio were all in attendance
Yeah,
scouting
you did
this
say that.
movie for acquisition.
Yes.
So for it to land at Movie of all places is quite interesting. I don't anticipate that it's for a lack of interest, because this was definitely one of the buzzier titles and one of the more marketable titles. I would
I
assume
agree.
from the
I
festival.
wonder if it's that they wanted the theatrical option and like we're really pushing to get a deal with someone who is willing to put it in theaters. Whereas like I
Yeah.
think this would have been really well suited for Netflix, but I'm glad it didn't go to Netflix. You know, like
I agree.
And
Yeah.
it'll
look,
get there
Mubi
eventually. You know?
worked wonders with the substance. So maybe
Yes.
they've got a really cool theatrical plan for Lurker as well.
I hope. I feel like a lot of these studios have been like stepping up their game in terms of marketing. Like Neon's marketing team should be studied for what they did with Long Legs and you know, and how they've been doing things with the monkey.
Yeah.
It's like it's really good that they're both kind of like picking movies that can at least kind of stand on their own, but then they're actually giving it the drive to do things with, which Netflix has unfortunately just like not been doing.
It's just also
They
a very
didn't
good
drop them at
cosign
all.
to get
It's a
someone
great
like Mubi.
cosign if Mubi's gonna grab
Yeah.
it, especially after like the run they're doing with the substance, as we just said. Like it's good.
Exactly. So I'm excited for that one.
And then there are 2 films that Netflix has picked up. One movie that I think is extremely well suited to Netflix, and one that is probably the worst fit imaginable. Let's start with the one that's well suited. It's the documentary The Perfect Neighbor, which is definitely one of the most compelling documentaries out of the festival. We talk about it a bit in our top 10 films of Sundance video.
Had great things to say about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a story of like a conflict between 2 neighbors that escalates over a couple years, told through police body cam footage as the police would routinely show up to sort of like investigate and calm down the quarrel between them. It's so well done, so tightly edited in a way where it just ratchets up the tension and just feels like the kind of movie that Netflix knows how to get in front of a lot of eyeballs, because there are a lot of people who are interested in things that are in the world of true crime, although I would say this is a much more elevated version of what you would normally get from a Netflix true crime documentary.
That's a great. We didn't get to mention how you and I were really surprised on how they showed the cops, which isn't even them showing it. It's just showcasing the archives, the body cam footage. And it's such a different There's a lot of angles in this movie that don't go the way you think.
Yeah.
For good and for bad reasons.
Yeah.
Netflix is a good place to have it.
I'm not so sold on Netflix as the landing spot for Train Dreams, because it is a really beautifully assembled movie, some of the best cinematography we've seen at Sundance, a gorgeous score, and just a really lyrical, poetic type of film.
It's weird that they wanted it, unless they do think this is going to be their Oscar push for next year. Like if they're just kind of preemptively thinking that, which could be good because then it would get to some theaters at least.
Right.
But...
Like I almost have trouble imagining why they would want it if not for that, right?
Yeah,
because it is so not the kind of splashy movie you would expect to do well on Netflix. Like I think there's a really likely scenario where this just shows up unannounced and never makes the top 10, but that would be a shame because this is one of the most beautiful movies we saw in Sundance.
Ridiculous, bro. You had some other ones that you had mentioned weren't picked up. One that I was literally thinking of when you brought up The Perfect Neighbor, because it does invert what you think of a documentary, especially in true crime. Predators.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Woo.
That one I can't imagine won't end up somewhere, just because it is such a like such a topic of fascination.
Yeah.
We have this mentioned in our top 10 rundown. Zach also has another one that surprisingly, I like when we're making our top 10, we're like, none of these have been picked up.
Yeah.
The next one you have is
I got Omaha on the list. I mean, I was going to ask you guys what you think are the ones you're most surprised have not been picked up.
this one for sure.
Omaha?
Because I know Atropia won, but we've gone so many years with a Sundance winner like not going anywhere. That's why Coda was such a big surprise, because we were getting like laws of those winners not really going anywhere. But that one's definitely big.
Yeah. Twinless, because we don't really know what the deal is with that Republic distribution, whether they're actually the distributor of that movie or if they are selling it around. I would assume that would just be deals behind the scene, because there's no way that something that was so popular had to be pulled from the digital platform isn't something people are fighting over. Like
you got copyright people with you already. You good?
Yeah, you're good. You know, like
that's one of the movies where like I'm not I just assume there is behind the scenes negotiations going on.
Yes,
I can't imagine a world in which that one does not get picked up.
I'm just surprised it's taking so long.
Yeah, for sure.
And again, I feel like a lot of the longer debates on some of this could be the difference between the person offering the most not wanting to do something that the filmmaker wants. Some of these people want theatrical releases, and
that's one of the things we talked about with Michael Felker when he came on the podcast for Things Will Be Different, in that, you know, it's not just about the theatrical windows being offered, but these distributions history to selling the films for streaming, and some filmmakers want to end up on a Netflix later or want to end up on another service later. So there's a lot of things to think about in the modern landscape for distribution.
Yeah, so much.
And that's why I'm surprised the Josh O'Connor one hasn't been picked up. With all the buzz that this has going for it, it has to be behind the scenes stuff where they're just like figuring out where else are we going to put it. To me, it's that I think they're waiting so that they can announce it as a package together, announced, and then also said we're going to be at South by. Yeah, they had a bunch that, you know, were going to come out at Berlin, so they're able to like double it up in that sense. So I'm very curious to see what they do with this one. I saw you also had Ricky as an option that I'm very surprised, because I thought this was a very strong debut. Already taking it from a short to a feature. Come on, what isn't that? That's like going all the way to Sundance and not having a place to stay. Y'all know what I'm saying? Atropia being the winner, I'm hoping does get picked up, because this was, I've been saying it, an incredible intro to a movie. And, you know, it still ends up pretty well, but I can see this one getting more attention. And then one that I feel is going to make it all the way to the Oscars next year, and surprisingly does not have that cosign yet from...
Is it surprising when we've seen some other movies not get distribution?
True. But you would think, like, what is the point of premieres if they're not going to premiere?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of hype around All That's Left of You, and it seems like it's done pretty well critically.
It's like it's done well, and then just nothing. Yeah. It's interesting. But that could also be, I think, Zach, you're kind of mentioning this. What happens when you have so many people on the screeners side? Do those movies become like, oh, that's a different festival? That's the in-person one that's happening over there to a degree. So you don't have that much buzz coming out of it, because just the sheer numbers of the digital viewers over there. There were some Sundance Awards here that'll tie up with a bunch of the other movies that we wanted to mention, but I know that a lot of people had the opportunity to be able to get the award pass. I still think it's one of the best options if you're at home. That way you're able to see all the selections that get chosen. Some of the winners that we saw here, be it from the Festival Favorite Awards, were, they did runner-ups. Deaf President Now, Alabama Solution, Ballad of Wallace, Andres and Indian Prime Minister. Oh, wow. Hey, that's crazy. My top movie. There you go. Grand Jury Prizes, like we said, Atropia. Grand Jury Prize for Doc with Seeds. Zach said he got that one. Amanda gave a shout-out for Sabor Bonda. We'll just be going, because we already have big coverage on all these. Cutting Through Rocks, I actually got to catch last minute. Really cool documentary about a woman who's like fixing up stuff for everybody over there in Iran.
Yeah, like motorcycles and stuff.
Yeah, the motorcycle lady, bro. She's a true badass. The next Innovator Award from Zodiac Killer Project. Amanda, can you remind me the entire jury?
Oh God, it's so hard. Elijah Wood.
And that's
it.
And it's only because he's the GOAT, the legend, the man who goes to South by and all these film festivals because he's a true film fan that I'm kind of like, all right, sure, why not?
I
This
love
was his
it.
pick. And, as much criticism as Amanda and I have on it, we're still kind of intrigued by like what he was going with this.
Yeah,
It's like
literally.
a YouTube video type doc where he's assessing the documentary he never got to make about who he thought the Zodiac Killer was, and then kind of recaps a bunch of documentaries and the things that they do to hook you. That won the Next Innovator Award, but many times it's the audience. What are they voting for? And I think they included digital viewings as well. So U.S. Dramatic went to Twinless for whoever got to catch it. U.S. Doc went to Andre's an Idiot, which Amanda mentioned in one of her honorables. DJ I Met, we did not get to cover a bit, but that won the Audience Award for World Cinema Dramatic. And I was telling Zach, sometimes you get surprised because I like seeing the difference between a movie that played at or a movie that gets voted on Letterboxd compared to a movie on IMDb. And this movie on Letterboxd, it's got a decent rating. But I don't know what they were drinking over on IMDb because they love DJ Ahmed at an 8.3 over there. So, hey, some of these sleeper hits, you never realize.
It's weird. Nobody you're following liked it, particularly.
Exactly. But that's what I'm saying. You got like completely different audiences depending
interesting.
on who votes where. But other than that, Prime Minister, the Australian documentary, one for the World Cinema. East of All, one of the last ones we caught. One next. Perfect Neighbor, which Zach really was shouting out. Won the directing award for the jury award for U.S. documentary. Ricky did win directing award, so there was that. We had mentioned the documentaries, 2,000 Meters, the Things You Kill. I don't think any of us caught.
No, everybody except you did. No, it's me and Caitlin. Me and Caitlin are the only ones who caught it.
The Things You Kill, I know what happens.
Yeah.
I can, that is an insane movie.
It is literally, and it's kind of working against itself, like not to spoil, but it hits a point where I was like, I'm pretty sure it's this. And Caitlin's like, oh, that would make sense. But then a character says something to acknowledge someone. And I'm like, well, then it can't be that, but it is.
I've heard the term Lynchian thrown out there.
Like a little, yeah, but like not really, but like kind of. But yeah, it's like they kind of unintentionally shoot themselves in the foot by having a character do something.
You give it the recommendation or not?
I would. It was good, but it just something happened that I was like, me and Caitlin were both kind of like, it must be that, but how can it be? Because they said this.
All right.
So it's you're not following the rules. You have rules if you're going to do this, and you're not following them. So
it's keeping me intrigued. The jury liked the directing on that one.
It's good. It is very good.
The World Dramatic.
Yeah.
Waldo's screenwriting went to Sorry Baby. The Jonathan Oppenheim Editing Award for documentary went to Andre is an Idiot. And then you got all those special jury awards that we really like. U.S. Dramatic Acting went to Twinless. U.S. Dramatic Special Jury for Ensemble went to Plainclothes. U.S. Doc for Archival Storytelling, Selena, even though they were not archiving that, or they were mad when other people were archiving it. U.S. Doc Special Jury went to Afterlife, which is a really good one. Cinematic Drama Special Jury for Creative Vision went to DJ Ahmed, so 2 for DJ Ahmed. World Cinema Dramatic Special Jury for Writing went to 2 women, one that Zach has been shouting out a lot, one that I definitely want to catch. It's on my watch list. World Cinema Doc Special Jury Award, Mr. Nobody Against Putin, another one Zach caught that you'll see in our wider coverage. And then some more awards for Coexistence, My Ass, for Freedom of Expression. Mad Bills to Pay. Did anyone else get the chance to catch this?
Damn. Yeah, I wanted to. I missed this one.
Yeah, same.
Very colorful movie. It is the best way I can describe it because he had said that his homages were Spike Lee. Biggest Spike Lee movie.
Oh,
Hot Summer.
Oh, Do the Right Thing.
Yeah. Do the Right Thing. He wanted the colors from Do the Right Thing digitally. I think he achieved it.
Cool.
Very interesting. Whole movie's done it with wide shots too, which is another interesting perspective to go about with the movie. But wrapping this up over here, we also had some of the shorts. But overall, I think it was a solid year in terms of how they were able to split up things. I think the awards were able to go to a variety of different movies to be shined on. It sucks that some of the winners were taken off, but
yeah. I think we are normally more upset with their choices for winners than we were this year. This year, I feel like they at least made sense.
Wasn't too bad,
if they wouldn't be our picks.
Yeah. No, I agree. It wasn't too bad. Like nothing. It's like, okay, it's cool that it won. I wish it would have been this, but it wasn't too bad. Every once in a while, we're just kind of like, what do you mean?
Yeah, because there was that one year where it was like Scrapper and Persian version. And
Oh
just a
my
bunch of, like,
God, that was last year.
confusing choices.
Was that last year?
It was
2 years
that
ago.
was a couple
No, that was
years
2 years ago.
It
Yeah,
was
that
like they were
2 years
taking
ago.
our list and going from the bottom up instead of the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally. Oh,
Which is why I want to mention Bunnylovr. Warn them, Amanda. I know you got
Jesus.
to cover the stragglers that we won't cover in our much wider stuff.
man.
Here are the ones that got away. The
Dude,
movies to still give you our final thoughts.
yeah.
And Amanda gave us her thoughts on
And
Bunnylovr.
I don't even like hate it. It's like, it just, man, it should have been in the midnight category. I do think there should have been more warnings going into that. I realize that like nothing is happening to a real bunny, but like they make it sound and look like something's happening to a real bunny, to the point that I wish something worse had happened to the bunny so I wouldn't have to continue worrying about the bunny. And that's weird. I shouldn't be wishing for that, but I was, because I just couldn't calm down the rest of the movie. But it was also just not doing enough with its runtime to justify the amount of anxiety I was feeling for this goddamn rabbit. I was so excited for this movie, because I think the premise is really good. It's not even just like Rachel's in it, but it was also the premise on top of that. I, again, similar to how Oh Hi kind of got me because of modern dating things, this gets me because of the modern landscape of like loneliness, online relationships, online dynamic, being in a position where you can be validated by so many people, but because they're just screen names, you don't feel that, you're not seeing that, you're not actually receiving anything from a real person. So the situations you can put yourself in by trying to get that kind of validation and solve that loneliness, the lengths it can push you to, is really interesting to me. But then it goes in a direction, and then it's kind of similar to my wedding banquet thing, and that you're introducing something and then you're not giving enough time to actually deal with the fallout of that. This tried to wash it away with like a 2-second thing of her literally saying something like, I think I might be evil. And then they just don't talk about it more, because like, obviously, like, I'm trying not to, like, I'm not being that little spoiler, my bad, but like,
I would say that like this is a film. I didn't find the like animal stuff nearly as excruciating as you did, but I did find this movie to be a lot more boring than I think you did.
No, and that's
because that's like,
it is.
The buddy's an actor. I'm cool with that. I'm not forgiving it for being boring.
So there was two things for me, is that for one, the bunny thing was horrifying, and then the rest of it wasn't being interesting enough to justify what they made me sit through. And two, it was also just the like, I brought someone to that movie who also was very uncomfortable, and I was like, fuck, I've now ruined this person's day.
Yeah, for sure.
Not really, because like they have been enjoying bitching about it, but it was just like, or she's been enjoying bitching about it, but like we literally, it was like a bunch of us in a row, which funnily enough had Celine's song in it because she was one of the voters in the jury. Like it was but it was same row. And we're all like just looking at each other, being like, it's not even that it happened. It's like the justification that they end up doing for it, and the fact that they tease it, and then they almost don't, and then they do. And I'm just like, and then you just hear little squeaks, and I was like,
I think a lot of my general philosophy when it comes to like upsetting material is that like, I'll allow it at least dramatically if I find it to be there for a compelling enough reason, and I don't know if that's what necessarily clears that bar. But you know, even with that stuff aside, I think, you know, this is a movie about a cam girl, as you mentioned, who just sort of is seeking some sort of like connection.
You know, because they show us like they show us like the ex-boyfriend that she's still kind of hooking up with, the new person she might be interested in, but is scared to actually like meet.
But it's just sort of like stays in this place of stasis, and it tries to hit a tone more so than develop a story or a character.
I agree. That one's sorry.
It just ultimately feels like the same few scenes repeating for most of
I agree. That's why that was one of the ones I said. It feels like this is a deeply personal story to an extent. I don't know how much of this she actually did. I'd like to think that part didn't happen, and that was what they chose to throw in for dramatic effect. Because she even said they didn't go as far as they could have. They were literally, there's a scene they decided not to do, and I'm like, I can think of 2 things you could have done, and I won't say what they are, and I don't know which of the options would have been better. But it really does. It's like, this is a personal story, but I don't think you've come far enough out on the other side to justify it, which is kind of almost like Jimpa. I feel like Jimpa, it's like you are too much in it right now to be telling the story you are, because even the conflict in your movie is trying to decide that there's no conflict. So it's like,
I was going to say, to go from one movie to the positive thoughts that Zach has to say for Jimpa.
But it just kind of struck me, kind of this, before we jump fully into Jimpa, it just struck me as the similar thing of somebody who has this very deeply lived experience that matters to them. Because again, there's also, she ties in something with her father. And she hasn't seen her father. Katerina has not seen her own father in 15 years. So she was like, let me try to reckon that in here as well, if I did randomly run into him on the side of the street. So it's like, there's actually a lot going on, but it just doesn't seem to like know how to escalate it in areas. So it just, like Zach said, ultimately ends up just kind of feeling like the same scenes kind of like recycled. And then you just get these few moments of things really escalating and then just pulling right back down into like the rest of her life. Versus a Red Rooms, which always feels like it's kind of escalating in service of what's happening. So, but yeah, on to Jimpa.
Zach, you told me let's go watch this at the Egyptian.
You hadn't been to the Egyptian yet. Aren't you glad you went to the Egyptian?
I am actually glad I went to the Egyptian. I'm probably by default the one who likes this the most, by just by default. But I scroll down and I see my brethren did not like this one right here.
Nope, not really.
She runs out. He beats everybody to the bar with me and Caitlin and instantly starts ordering shots. And this poor woman has to stand there because they can't give them all at once because it's Utah. And he's just like...
Jimpa is a story of a director who, because their father was gay and their child is non-binary,
yeah,
they decided to put that up on screen. And there's some vulnerability in there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have too much to defend it other than it being, again, one of those movies that's trying to talk about LGBTQ plus issues that does get into a very rough mode. It didn't gel for y'all. What was the thing that like really pushed you? What was the part of the movie where you weren't having it anymore?
I think Zach ended up hating it more than me, so he can
Zach said
let him go first. Let him go first. So I just cut him off. My bad.
No. I am very interested to hear your opinions. I will say this as far as my reaction to Jimpa, and that like I don't have any problem with anything that actually happened in the movie. I think, in fact, you could probably take the same like character dynamics and general plot structure and make an interesting movie about it. But director Sophie Hyde, who is a filmmaker that I've had plenty of time for in the past, I think we all really responded to Good Luck to You, Leo Grande. Mm-hmm. And I also really am a fan of, I think 52 Tuesdays was their first film.
Mm.
Sophie Hyde goes into this movie with a certain approach, like a dramatic choice, which she even puts into the voice of the Olivia Colman character, who is like a self-insert of herself into the story, that they believe that you can do a film without conflict. And I just do not agree. There is just no dramatic tension to this film. There's no momentum to the story at all. It just kind of exists and stays in a place of mutual understanding, which is it's nice and it's sweet, but it's super boring. And I just don't find the dynamics to be that believable. They it's not like to me it's not a picture of a really progressive family. It's a caricature of what acceptance and radical understanding can look like in a way that does not feel like it exists in the real world. And I don't know, man. There's these brief moments where they sort of like brush up on the idea of conflict, and those are the most interesting moments of the movie. But because of the way Sophie Hyde wants her story to go, they immediately brush over any.
I literally keep waiting for her to realize that you can't have a movie not be that, and then it does start showing the conflict, and then it kind of has someone do something, and then they just back off it immediately.
Yeah,
there's also the conflict is people trying to figure out where they're supposed to be in this world, And sometimes you find it, and maybe the world
Yeah,
changes
but
on
no,
you?
but then there's real conflict in the movie that it skirts over. Like literally, John Lithgow's like attitudes towards things don't actually like get dealt with, and it doesn't even need to get
Can't
dealt
teach
with.
an
There just
old
needs
dog
to
new
be
tricks.
no, but there just had to be more of a like when the kid calls the mom out, there never ends up being another like enough of a conversation after that.
She's a pushover.
It's also that
That's what I mean. No conflict.
these characters have no interiority whatsoever. No character in this film has ever thought, let me keep this idea to myself. They all
Yeah, oh my
are
God.
Okay,
constantly
that is
stating
so true.
exactly
You were like,
who
"Oh,
they
let
think
me
they are
crawl in
and
the tub
how
with
they
you
feel
too."
about a situation. And like,
bruh.
this is
Too
my
much.
opinion as a married woman to a mother of a non-binary child who has
It was
a
infuriating.
husband who is, it's just like, the
It's too
constant
much.
need to define itself and explain itself is so boring.
The
and
only character I
uncinematic.
liked was the husband.
The husband was decent,
He was
and you know,
decent.
I know there were.
Oh, and the
they were-
boyfriend.
Lithgow had his
Yeah.
moments.
The
I
boyfriend.
like the
okay.
ants. There's a group of three
Oh,
friends
yeah.
that John Lithgow has where they get together and just complain,
Yeah.
vent, say whatever. Yeah, I don't think you can put it any better than what Zach saying. They are in a public space saying everything possible,
Yeah.
every opinion, arguing with each other, and I don't know. I feel like that would happen, but this
Yeah.
definitely is a movie where they put everything up on screen. And I guess that's how they dealt with it.
But that's what I mean. It just doesn't feel like it got dealt with. It
But
just
most
doesn't.
people
Like,
wouldn't gel with that, I guess.
I don't know. I'm definitely closer to Zach on this. Obviously, it really. I walked away from that feeling weird, which I also think is why Twinless ended up being such a highlight for me because I got to see that after, and I was like, oh my God, this is so nice. There's a couple interesting, like, there's like a 16-year-old says the word, no, yeah, 16-year-old says the word compersion. I'm like, I don't need to see a 16-year-old say, like, what the fuck are we doing here? And I did think that was like an interesting little train there of like, you can think that you're really into certain things and that you would be okay with certain things in life, but then when it actually practically has to happen, like the whole, like I think the line is in the movie is literally like Gen Z has the playbook, but they've never had a chance to get in the game. And then it's like, what happens
But that's
when
not
they do
what the
get in the
movie's
game?
about.
But that's
and
not what
it
the
would be
movie's
so much
about.
more interesting if it was.
I know, that's what I mean. This felt like it was like through at least two different movies put into one, and then too much with the kid because it's actually Sophie's child.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that hurt the movie a lot because I felt like they were doing a lot to get the kid in the movie more than the story needed. Like, I don't think that the movie ever should have been in anyone's perspective other than Olivia Colman's. The story it's telling should have only ever been in that character's perspective, and we get like way too much in the kid's perspective, which I didn't feel was needed. Or again, make that a separate movie. Instead of putting it all into one, tell your child's story separately, even if it does relate into the same universe with this. I don't know. There's all these little interesting ideas and little interesting conflicts, and they never go anywhere. And you get these nice montages of like what people would have looked like when they are younger compared to they are now, but it just never feels like it's working in service of anything greater. I don't know. I just felt weird. It just made me feel really weird is the only way I can describe it. I was just walking home being like, I didn't stay for the Q&A. And like, they were all there, the world premiere. And I was like, I don't know. I feel like there's a reason they put this on the
There's
first
always
day
a bad
afternoon.
sign when there's a Q&A and you just choose to leave, which is
with
what
like
both
people
of
that I
them
like.
chose to do at separate screenings of this movie.
Yes, 2 separate screenings. And like, I love John Lithgow. I love Olivia Colman. I would have loved to have been there to hear them talk, but I was like, I feel I have to get out of this theater. I was gone. The only time I've gotten out of a theater faster actually was Megalopolis. It's gone. Yeah, I don't know. I just felt weird.
You know, Bubble and Squeak surprised me, bro. Like I did.
Yeah, no, that like I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I caught it as a screener.
I think Zach catching it before all of us really prepped us.
So
At
you have to stop
Jimpa,
saying that. Zach had to play litmus test for so many things.
I was the human
you did that
shield.
for Jimpa for me, but when we actually were for Jimpa, there was a cool volunteer who kind of pitched this to us, saying that you really need to focus on the British humor of it. You really need to see this like a Monty Python type thing.
Yeah,
I think this is over the top stupid fun. And I was surprised with how heartfelt it was because it's about smuggling cabbages
Yeah.
in
It's
this
a-
world. Yeah. Go for it.
I'm just gonna say it's a really silly, like almost underdone premise. Like,
Yeah.
like you kind of want to be like, oh, so is the cabbages like a metaphor for? No, it's just cabbages.
Just cabbages. It's funny.
And
But there were
and
lines that were really good.
yeah, there's like some really funny bits and some kind of delightful performances. And to be honest, I was the only one of us that saw this actually in a theater.
Mhm.
And seeing it in a theater, I did feel a little bit trapped by the end of the second act.
Yeah.
But like as a movie, you kind of half watch as a screener and just laugh at the funny bits.
Yeah.
I think it totally passes the litmus test.
Yeah.
I think it's worth. This is definitely a streaming movie, but sometimes a streaming movie
Yeah.
isn't a bad thing. It's just where you
No.
got to catch it.
Yeah.
Catch this one at home if you're interested in it. I know
Yeah.
people were really anticipating it. I had it a lot lower in the preview, and it didn't get into the tops, but it did actually impress me a bit more. There's a line a kid says in this movie, and it's the way he delivers it. So funny.
Timothée.
Himesh has a really funny line that I like, and Sarah
Yeah.
had a bunch of killer moments too.
I also just love any bit we get of Matt Berry's Werner Herzog impression.
Yeah.
Hysterical. He did a
So
fantastic
good.
job with this as
Yeah.
well. But again, way more goofy than I mean, I don't know. It's called Bubble and Squeak, and they're bringing in cabbages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does sort of
Which way to
feel
say?
like it really wishes it was Wes Anderson or Yorgos Lanthimos.
They-
I came out of it thinking
Absolutely.
about Riley Stearns' Duel, which is
Oh, yeah.
another movie
That's more in
that
that
is sort
realm
of
for
like
sure.
kind of that awkward, stilted humor, but I think I still prefer Duel to this one.
Me too.
Yeah.
I like Duel a lot, actually.
But Bubble and Squeak, I know some people were anticipating this one. Not going to be up there, sadly, at least from our accounts. But still, I agree. It's a stream it. One that I was able to like semi-catch digitally, so I can't give it the full thing. Amanda got to also half catch physically. Is a
I
movie
lucked
that I was
out.
very anticipating. I was anticipating it highly until everything got switched out. I was never able to go to an in-person one. I couldn't get tickets. My waitlist numbers were bad, and
Good.
then on the final, weekend, we had to like go out of our way multiple times for Twinless. Caught a digital of this, and boy, it's just as weird as its premise.
As a short, it would have been great.
Perhaps,
That
yeah.
first act I thought was great, and then it just keeps going and
Yeah.
going. Even there's a scene with the mom that's outside that first act that I still liked, but then it just keeps going and I was like, I'm leaving. And you know what? It was great. I found an amazing bar. I found an amazing cocktail lounge that actually balances their drinks so that they taste like they have alcohol in them and don't just cheap out because they can, because Utah has weird rules. Alpine Cocktail Lounge or something.
Shout out Alpine.
Shout out
Shout out
Alpine.
Alpine.
Beautiful
Fantastic.
spot too. Big couches, like lots of couches. Like almost every spot feels like a VIP lounge. It's great. It's great.
I like what it's going for. The metaphor being of a woman who decides to be a chair, and
Yeah.
someone buys the chair.
Mhm.
Now women are upset. How could you just be something that could be purchased and put on display?
Yeah.
Why are you telling her what she can or cannot be? Perhaps as a short, it wouldn't run people's patience, but
Yeah.
I do like the idea of it and how committed every single person. This is right up all of these actors' alleys
Yeah.
in making these quirky. Juliette Lewis, Mamadou Ati especially. I think they're able to really approach it
Yeah.
by not making it like a joke. They're fully committed to the bit
Yeah.
of this woman turning into a chair.
Yeah.
But it is going to be as ridiculous as that.
I
premise.
didn't even get to Ruby Cruz.
Yeah,
Ruby
oh,
Cruz was in that movie.
Yep.
No.
Clifton Collins also
My
comes like in and out of it, but yeah, looking at that bar right there, that is either going to intrigue the hell out of you or push you away.
Who gave it a 5?
Letterboxd.
Who gave it a 4? Who gave it a 4?
Shout out
Who on your
Michael, probably Michael.
Who in your friends list gave it a 4? No, over more. The person who actually said something about it to the left.
Oh, our boy
Connor.
Shout out Connor.
Shout out
Shout out.
Connor.
Connor sees the vision by design.
No, and that's what I mean. I'm watching it. I'm like, this is gonna work for a lot of people, but I am a little bit. I'm not as big a fan of this type of like.
Mhm.
Like I said, I thought it was really funny at first, and then I was just like, I am not in the mental space for this point right now. This was like,
I could.
I
keep
just wanted to
watching
get to
this
the
movie,
Egyptian,
or I
Or-
could keep drinking.
or I could be anywhere. Like I wasn't even planning on
Yeah.
drinking. I was planning on going and doing something, and then I was like, oh my god, this bar is finally open. I need to go check it out, and I was like, oh my god, it's good. So yeah, by design, chair. It's funny.
Chair. Grab a chair, leave a chair.
Who was Ruby Cruz? Was she at the dinner? Because I got to the dinner scene and that's when I left. Like when he brings
She's
the chair.
Yeah, it's one of the group when they're really coming up on Mamadou as
Oh,
well.
okay. So I
like,
definitely should have seen her and probably just didn't recognize her.
Yeah, I mean everyone's very eccentric in the movie as well, but again, a lot of stylistic choices there. It'll hit for the people that it does. I think Amanda Kramer has a very specific eye. She had done Please Baby Please, and it's a very similar tone to the goofiness that's happening in this one. But I don't think that one's is it picked up by design?
As far as I know, no.
Probably not.
Bro.
But one that definitely will be. I don't see how it doesn't.
I will be for sure. Yeah.
I think I was the only one to catch this one as a premiere. It was very at the bottom of my list, but we found some time. Jennifer Lopez's reimagining, if you want to say. I guess it's a remake of the original Kiss of the Spider-Woman. In particular here, you are following the character of... Oh, he goes by one name? Whoa. Tonatiuh. So... They're playing a prisoner alongside Diego Luna, who is considered this like massive rebellious person, just who he was in Star Wars minus the Galaxy Far, Far Away. And technically, it's a whole story being told in that jail cell from a person who's looking to transition. And because they're put in this male prison, they're going through all of this, BS. But the story that's being told is of the Spider-Woman, played by... A lot of these characters play multiple characters because in retelling that story... Diego Luna is also in it. They're also in it as a character. And it is very much a throwback to those classic musicals where everything's a set piece. The lights are shining on one thing with all this negative space. All the dance moves hit. It feels like a Christmas, Thanksgiving release for like mainstream audiences.
Yeah, that's fair.
Most people have seemed to really embrace it. And the talk from everybody when you go down the list is... This is a musical about trans people that's way better than the almost record-breaking Amelia Perez. It's decent. So once the trailer comes out, if it's up your alley, you'll know right away. Really good costumes. Fantastic gowns. But overall, Kiss of the Spider-Woman. Doesn't have a release date yet, but I can see it definitely getting a major rollout.
And what else has Bill Condon done, the director?
Oh, Bill Condon is like... I mean, the man's damn near a producer at this point with so many big things. Dude, they throw him so much stuff dealing with musicals.
That's the only reason why I almost went to see it. I was like, that's my boy.
Yeah. He's worked on big stuff. And then as producer, the man has done so much more as well. But, hey, it'll come out. It'll be out.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Going a little bit on the opposite side, which would have been a U.S. premiere from the U.S. competition, Love Brooklyn. I really enjoyed as it's telling the story of Brooklynites who are now kind of getting pushed out and they have to struggle with, do they stay or do they go? It's even more personal because you're following Andre Holland, who's got multiple love interests. Who will he stay with? Who will he go with? I liked the interactions here. There's one particular scene that stood out to me because he's a book writer and he's like, I got an idea. And he goes, that was a cool idea for the pandemic. Boy, we're out of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And there's these in and outs where it sometimes dips into like an American fiction, not so much for the industry as it is a people living in a place and hearing them discuss the ins and outs of like, does a place change because you were pushed out or because you didn't fight to stay? And the way that's embraced through the relationships this guy is dealing with as well.
Right, because it's not quite as explicit about the elements of gentrification as it is sort of like in metaphorical ways relating to this love triangle of sorts that the Andre Holland character finds himself in.
And Nicole Bahari is stunning in this movie. Really great. And everybody else as well, because he's also dating a mother who is like telling him, yo, I don't think you know the rules, but we're not just looking for a man. We recognize that we have to choose you too. And Andre's like, and that's such a refreshing perspective and a take for it. And I ended up really liking this one out of the US
me too.
dramatics as well.
I like it too.
One that Zach told me, make sure you catch it. Definitely put it on at night. It is a journey. OBEX. Well, one of the guys who had worked on Strawberry Mansions from a couple of years ago put this little movie together. Describe it, Zach.
So this is a story about like a computer nerd in sort of a floppy disk era who gets a advertisement that he can be put into a game, and then the game steals his dog. So he goes on a mission into the game to find and save his dog. And like lest you confuse this for something that's hyperactive like Scott Pilgrim, it is kind of the polar opposite. It is a really
Interesting.
like slow moving 8-bit homaging kind of far out psychedelic black and white video game movie. It's a really unique film with a really cool look, particularly in its back half, which I would highly recommend you watch while inebriated.
I was gonna say this isn't at home for me.
Oh yeah, no, for sure,
for at home and with a substance. But like, it is kind of really fun and wacky and goofy and out there, and there'll just be these like surprising choices they make that made me laugh. Like the guy will charge violently into battle, and then it'll go to a very quiet, like little 8-bit back and forth. I don't know, man.
Amanda, the thing he does for work is that he like presses buttons to be able to create portraits.
So he does like portraits. I get it. Yeah.
This was like right off the bat. That's already a goofy premise.
That is. I like that.
No, I like the aesthetic of it. It was cool.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a very stylish movie.
Yeah. Another one that I think was also very much on the stylish side, to the point that they said the subtitle would have been The Moistening Rabbit Trap. Midnight premiere that was only in person, starring Dave Patel, let me see, Rosie McEwen, and Jade Crew. Audiophiles, I want to say, because they're technically a musician, but he is responsible for capturing a bunch of audio stuff around their
He's like a producer, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they come across a nameless child, as it's put.
Well, first you come across some weird shit and you tamper it. And it summons. You're summoning the weird kid in the woods. Yeah.
I thought it was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't dislike this movie. But it definitely, if the movie is showing you a plot where they're getting pushed to the edge, so are you as a viewer.
Yeah.
But it was also kind of intriguing. I thought the color choices, and especially how they're focusing on how he's got some trauma he hasn't dealt with, right? Yet again, another one of those. But the audio side of it, I thought was really interesting because you don't know what noises he's capturing.
Yeah.
Instead of seeing a flashback to the trauma, are we hearing it? Is it just the audio of something that he went through? And it's all these different elements of it that he said he wanted to make a movie, well, a horror movie where you weren't closing your eyes, but you were shutting your ears. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, there was definitely some cool ideas here. Like I do like the when people are very authentic with like different types of folklore where like fairies and things are actually just like these petulant little things that want attention, even though they're these like centuries old kind of gods, basically.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much kind of what's, is kind of always knocking on their outside their door as they're kind of like building. And it kind of reminded me in terms of that idea of like catching sound and, inviting different things in. It reminded me a little bit of, there was like an internet series called Marble Hornets that was about Slender Man. And the whole thing is they accidentally catch him on camera. And every time they start playing, it summons him. You basically trapped his essence in the camera, and this felt like you're trapping the essence of something that should not have been found in audio. And then because that's when he brings some of those sounds back to the house, and she's like, oh my god, this is like crazy, and it's just pounding it out there, and that's what kind of starts awakening things in their environment. Which I thought was really cool. I think that's what I mean. There's like so many cool aspects to this movie.
Yeah.
I just wish, I just wish, probably like you, that it had maybe gone a little bit further in areas. If it just, and maybe I'll rewatch it and be like, what, this is actually like really, really good, because I think we went in with like slightly different expectations and walked out being like, did that even need to be in the midnight category? I feel like they needed to flip the bunnies, those bunnies, get them in different categories, but yeah, it's I don't know. It was really interesting. Some of it got very frustrating towards the end, but but I still liked what it was going for. Some people are definitely going to find it. Oh, you go.
Sorry, Trevor Adams in the live stream comments is asking if, as reflected on Letterboxd, there are actually only 3 people in the cast of this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Technically
3 main people, at least.
No, there is technically. I would say there's literally only 3 people, but there is
something
technically
as a body,
something as a body, like flashback thing. But yeah, So
limited.
Overall, yeah.
overall, I would say it's yeah, it
He
is.
talked about really building the world, so I am curious to go revisit it again.
Yeah,
But at the
same.
time being, it was a little bit not enough for me to not recommend it, but
Yeah.
definitely not one to say go out to the theaters to see.
That's absolutely it. Which I think is honestly like for us to kind of be like kind of middling on it, but still being like, I'd like to rewatch it just to see if I get
Yeah.
anything else out of it is probably a pretty good recommendation for it
Exactly,
overall.
because even then, I'm saying watch it at home, but then like if this is up your alley, the sound you might want to see in the
Dude,
theater,
no,
and
and I think
visually you might want to see in the theater.
and I think some people are really gonna dig it just
Yeah.
because some people do really like the kind of more like out there, not really trying to hold your hand remotely, but then maybe going a little bit too funky in other areas. Like some people are just really gonna dig this. So
Look,
Yeah.
I'll compare it to this next one because I thought they were very similar in terms of using this outside
missed
force,
this
in
one.
particular an animal, that deals with your grief and what you're going through. And this one, the thing with the feathers is the Benedict Cumberbatch vehicle where he is grieving his wife, has to deal with his 2 boys, and is told in a series of chapters in particular on how they're dealing with this thing with the feathers, which is almost representative of the grief and trauma that they're going through.
Yeah.
Look,
I don't know.
Right, I don't want to say anything bad, but just not
Like I
for
thought
us.
Cumberbatch's performance in this was pretty good, but I just think that the film itself was a little bit either sloppy or alternately sloppy and heavy-handed with the type of metaphor that it's doing, because like what the crow represents and what it's actually manifesting as kind of changes from section to section, and there's just some really strange moments where it's trying to blend genre in a way that I found to be kind of unsatisfying, and if anything kind of like undercutting the emotions that they're going for, because it all felt a bit ridiculous rather than, you know, ominous or worrisome. Like just tonally it was really all over the place. And yeah, I mean, I couldn't really, I couldn't get on this movie's wavelength.
Okay. Yeah, well, thing with the feathers, I felt the exact same way. Not too much negative things to say about it, but nonetheless, it's going to be out there. Hopefully it hits with some people. I told you it was like Tuesday, that movie where the pigeon kind of represents death.
Yeah,
I saw a lot of other, a parrot, yeah.
or is a macaw? I think it might have been a macaw.
It should have been left by Monday, but look, the thing with the feathers will work for some people. Didn't necessarily work for us. Just like another midnight one, which ended up being one that I caught with Amanda and Alina in the final world premiere of Sundance.
Yeah.
Touch Me. Zach had pitched this to us. I told him, spoiler for me, bro. If you didn't like it, just let me know what I'm going to get into. And everything he said made me more excited until I watched the movie. Zach tried to explain it to the people quickly.
Touch Me is a movie about a alien whose touch is addictive in the way that a drug is. And so it is about this pair of earthlings who come into his sphere and basically try to angle to be around him and take advantage or use that you know, euphoric ability that he has. And it's a film that's sort of like playing on these ideas of like sensuality and trauma, and I don't know, like the sort of ways in which we risk our own benefit to chase after the things that make us feel good. And there's a lot of fun that they have with it in the first half of the movie. I think like ultimately though, this is a movie where they showed me their bag of tricks and then they kept trying to show me the same bag of tricks, and I just got a bit tired of it by the second half.
Yeah, something happens where characters end up in a situation, and that's the last thing I remember. And then, like, sporadically kind of waking up to weird things for like a bit. I wasn't even asleep that long. I don't think it was probably like 15 minutes tops, which I know that was a while. I don't usually fall asleep in movies. This is the only time it happened, but it was just like it hit a point where I was like, this isn't interesting. And and it was like my 5th movie of the day. And then, you know, we closed it out, but I was like, man, this did not stay as interesting as it could have gone in areas.
Amanda can attest to it. One of the weirdest Q&As that we had, but overall, we knew there was a really big fan base for Hypochondriac coming out of South by that one year. I think that one's better, and that one didn't blow me away too much. But I mean, look, Olivia Taylor-Dudley looks great in it, so definitely keep an eye out for any other performances she may have. Some of the other movies, just to go quickly, The Virgin of Quarry Lake was an interesting film about a bunch of virgins that are trying to be able to come into that adulthood and doing anything possible.
Dude, that got way more violent than I thought it was going to. I was like, what the fuck am I watching?
There's some like echoes of like Carrie, Amanda, I know you brought up The Craft.
Yeah.
Good call. Right there,
got the Craft vibes, yeah, for sure.
There was another international movie from last year called Toxic that dealt with like girls doing anything to be able to fit in a modeling agency that's there, and you see the same desperation from these girls. So it's a wonky little story, but I think the lead actresses really give it their all, and I thought it was an interesting world dramatic selection alongside Brides, which I know you were saying you wanted to go a little bit further, but I thought it was an interesting way of seeing the perspective of the girls, and to them it's a road trip movie. In reality, they're getting indoctrinated.
Yeah.
I'm the inverse, where I don't think they should have gone all out to do the specific decision they make at the end. I think they should have played it completely from their perspective the entire time, because you're already having people go into it as if it's a good thing, and I feel like audiences should know more. I feel like a lot of movies sometimes apologize when they make it too much of an enticing thing for people, but I thought that was one of the more effective things as the movie started off for Brides. We got a question. Someone was wanting to know if you had anything for Speak, Zach.
Yeah, I mean, so I talked about it a bit on Letterboxd, but this is a movie that is similar to a lot of previous Sundance documentaries like Boy State or Going Varsity and Mariachi that center around sort of like a competition of sorts in a niche area. But I think a lot of these ones that we've seen just do it better than Speak, which doesn't really give you a interesting array of characters to follow, and it also doesn't even really teach you about the nuances of the competition. Brady, shout out our patron Brady, who goes into detail in their Letterboxd review into like how these competitions are actually judged and scored in a way that the movie just never bothers to.
Interesting. Okay.
It's not it's not like a boring movie, and I'm sure some people who maybe know a bit more about the competitions would find more interesting in it, but I also just find this form of like competitive speech to be a lot less interesting than like kids studying to try and to get into a good college, or kids competing in Chopin competitions.
I feel you. I'll follow it up with another documentary that I thought was kind of decent, and Move Your Body, The Birth of House. It doesn't do anything too crazy, but I thought it was an interesting film, kind of going through the Chicago influences and how house music was created with some of the people who are lesser known. Zach saw Sukkwan Island, and what this man told me, I cannot believe.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's not a bad movie. I enjoyed the sort of perspective on survival in the wilderness. It just makes a big decision in the third act that I personally didn't jive with, that you can spoil for yourself if you want to look up the title of the novella it's based on. But it just did not stick that landing for me.
And then finally, to wrap up the stragglers, we're sorry, baby. Where's all these other ones? It's in our top 10. They're coming. But you're not going to see Serious People on there. Serious People is a film that I thought would have been very intriguing, because it's about a real music director. Who, when he's going to become a father, decides to get clones, twins of himself, people who he hires, auditions, in order to take his place, in particular, because he's got a Drake music video he's about to film. I'm going to ask you one question, Zach, because you and I saw this very late at night. Is OVO in cahoots with the movie, or are they being punked?
I think they're being punked. That's the vibe I got from this. This is a very like scrappy movie of sorts from what was the directing duo's name?
Pasquale Gutierrez and Ben Molenkoson?
Look, I'm sure we'll find out soon enough. Boy's litigious.
Two back to back? How could they do them like that? You didn't catch this, Amanda, right?
No, I didn't. I skipped it after you guys were like, I think basically everyone said it's really interesting for 10 minutes, and then you realize you're there for another like 70. So
read the private chat. I send it in the public.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a really goofy send up of like the behind the scenes of the entertainment industry, and I think there are some like
Ugh.
pretty funny scenes. I think the climax in particular is like a very funny sequence, but it is a very lethargic movie, and it takes its sweet time getting to those moments.
Oh yeah.
Damn.
I
Which
think
is-
I had a little bit of a better experience with this than you did,
I think you did,
than
bro,
most people
because
did, maybe.
That's
I
such
Yeah.
a
like-
bummer when it's so short. Like you never want to hear
Right.
it takes a while to get to something when it's so short.
86 minutes. I swore it was 2 hours. I hate the guy who he hires to be his thing. That's why I couldn't take it
That's
seriously.
fair.
I guess sure.
Gotcha.
Whatever you want to call it. Just I wanted it to work a bit better, but hopefully it does for some people out there. But that is some of the stragglers. I'm looking at some of the chat stuff here as we wrap it up. Manitou was talking about the Questlove doc. That'll be coming out really soon, so we saved it because there was no screeners for it, but technically it's going to be digital for the whole world. There was also talks about when we were mentioning All That Is Lost or All That Is Left. I keep getting the name wrong, but
All that's left.
All
of
That's
you.
Left of You.
Oh, it's
There
lovely.
you go.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
Yeah.
That No Other Land made it all the way to the Oscars with no distribution. So will the same thing happen for another movie coming from the state of Palestine?
A lot more complicated for a movie like that. That's like All That's Left of You, because No Other Land was able to
Narrative.
qualify for documentary, whereas in order to qualify for international, you have to be the selection of that country.
Right.
Ugh.
So
Damn.
maybe a harder hill to climb, but not an impossible one.
Okay. But other than those were some of the ones for the chat. We appreciate everybody who's been listening to us live. You have so much more content coming up, but
A
our
lot.
hour 30 is up. We have reviews for everything you can think of. And please let us know if you're looking for next year, which may be the last time it's in Utah. Hit us up with any ideas you have ever wanted, because we had talked to the Oscar boys and we had mentioned South by to them. And the more we described it, one of the Oscar boys was like, that sounds like spring break for film
Movie
fans.
lovers and music
And-
lovers.
And
Like,
this would be the winter break. So
Yeah.
please, 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 we've been going for all of these years. I would hate for it to move, and some of y'all didn't get the chance to see it in its original place.
Yeah.
Overall, it is a fantastic, fantastic film festival. We had a really great top 10 that we're going to be delivering to y'all. Individual reviews that we have coming up on the horizon. I don't know if y'all have any other stories, anything else to say. Shout out
we got
Stack
our-
sandwiches.
Yeah.
Very
Yes, shout out
good.
Stack. That's the discovery of this year's fest. Shout out, what was it? Sweet Biscuits and Limeade. Always a good.
yeah, they were
choice.
good.
Always
They were
good.
good.
And we
You
did a detour to
mentioned-
Casa Bonita as a video
Yeah.
for another
Oh,
day,
man.
but you were
Yeah, we
saying?
got to talk about Casa at some point. You mentioned South by Southwest. We will be doing our preview of South by Southwest in a week on the channel as well. So look forward to that. Keep voting on the Inner Cutie Awards if you haven't.
Yes,
We'll put
sir.
a link to that in the description below, because that's coming up as well. And we'll be talking about Oscars and stuff too. Got to get back on our weekend must-watch grind. There's a lot of stuff coming. Stay
Yeah,
tuned.
we-
Intercut
tuned.
podcast channel.
We saw 60 movies to come back for 60 more. But other than that, you can
Yeah.
find more from me over on LME Movies and all social media, all that good stuff, Letterbox. Zach, where can they find more from you?
You can find more from me across social media at Zshevich, or anywhere you find videos at Multiplex Show.
Amanda, Bunnylovr.
You can find me all over the place, but mostly on YouTube at Amanda the Jedi.
Who said Amanda the Jimpa? Someone called you Amanda the Jimpa. That made me snort a little bit. I was like,
Who
that's
the
terrible.
fuck? Who the fuck? Who the fuck?
But you can find us over on the Intercut Pod on all social media, all that good stuff. Tune in weekly here on Mondays where we recap either the new stuff that has come out during the week or all of the stuff that's come out from the film festival that will be a future Oscar pick. A reminder to leave us that 5-star review over on iTunes. Go over to Spotify, all that good stuff. Y'all know what it is. We trended everywhere. Everywhere.
Everywhere.
No need to even shout it out.
Across
But
the
until,
globe.
but until next time, keep watching movies. Zach, you got a line? If not,
Not off the dome. Shout out Robert Redford. We miss you.
Robert, we need you back. They said he hasn't been there for 3 years. Now we know why. Until next time, we'll see y'all later. Keep watching movies.
Do you find that Brad Pitt looks more and more like Robert Redford the older he gets?
That'd be a good, like Moneyball, but for Sundance.
Yeah.